Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to go through all the books on most of the books on my red shelf and my TBR shelf that have any sort of LGBT representation in it so you can enjoy these books for Pride Month. I think we will start with the TBR books because a good chunk of these books were in my previous video about the summer TBR. So we'll start there, so then later on in the video you get some new recommendations. To start, I have If This Gets Out by Sophia Gonzalez and Cale Dietrich. I'm not gonna get super into these books, mostly because this is gonna be a long video because I have a lot of recommendations for you guys. But this one, I'll tell you when we get to the red books, but all of these from now on, TBR books. So this one is One Direction fan fiction, essentially. It's about these two boy banders. They kind of have a thing going on. Everyone is kind of shipping them, but they aren't like officially out yet. I myself was a huge One Directioner back in the day. I absolutely loved Harry and Louis, Larry, forever. So basically I think this is gonna be super nostalgic for me, and I'm basically just gonna be picturing the characters as Louis and Harry anyway. Excited for this one. Next is one of the first ones that I talked about in my previous video, and that is Out of the Blue by Jason June. This one follows a non-binary merfolk person on their quest to help a human, because that's what the mermaids do in this world. They have to do a quest, and then if they finish the quest, they get to come back, be a mermaid. If they don't finish the quest, I think they get stuck as a human. Not 100% sure because I haven't read it yet, but the back does say fake dating. I think it's still gonna be a little bit gay. Excited for that. Next, Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This one is following Georgina and her family, who I have a feeling that they're witches. The back doesn't say witches, but it says kind of like a, no one really calls them what they are, but weird things kind of happen on this island they live on. It is a bit of a shorter breed, so I'm sure I can get through this pretty quickly. Sapphic, cute. The next couple are going to be sapphic. This one is The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gould. This one I'm very intrigued by. It is like a YA thriller where teenagers are disappearing and then showing up dead. And there is actually a like TV show happening in this town in Oregon. And one of the daughters obviously is going with them for the show, and so she has to start at this new school, and then everyone's kind of like, oh well, all this started when you guys showed up, so she's kind of getting blamed for it, but her and another girl team up to kind of figure out what's going on. So really excited for this one. Up next, I have a 2-for-1. I have the Henna Wars and Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagradar. I haven't read either of these yet, but I am super excited. They are both on my TBR and I own both of them. You know, I don't really know a ton about either of these except for that they're sapphic. This one is obviously about these two girls who are fake dating, and whereas this one I think might be enemies to lovers, because they have, yeah, a competition heats up and one of them has to decide to stay in the closet for her family or put aside her differences for Flavia and give the relationship a chance. Sounds a little heartbreaking to me, but I'm sure in the end it'll be a happy read because it's a YA. Moving on. I know we're going through them kind of quickly, but I don't want you guys to be here forever. So I have The Drowning Summer by Christine Lynn Herman. This one is following two girls. I think one of them has magic powers. Her dad was accused of murdering people a few years ago, and she somehow got him out of it by using her powers. Yeah, this one says that it's perfect for reading under a full moon, and I absolutely love that. So, excited for this one. And the last book from the TBR stack that I have here is All Out, which is an anthology by a lot of different people, edited by Sandra Mitchell. Some of the names that I recognize on here: Robin Talley, Mackenzie Lee, Anne-Marie Miclemore, Sean David Hutchinson, Melinda Lowe, and many others. I am not the greatest about reading anthologies, but I think this one will be kind of fun because it's all about LGBT representation, which I obviously love. You'll see how many books I have here regarding the topics, but excited to get to this one. Okay, so moving on, I tried my best to separate these into categories that made the most sense, at least the most sense to me, similar categories. I think we'll start with our contemporaries and then kind of move into the other genres as we go. So in this first one, I have The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I also have Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Both of these are following queer sapphic lesbian characters. This one, well, they're both told in verse because that's kind of her thing. The Poet X is following a girl kind of struggling with her like spirituality and religion, and also her sexuality at the same time, and like kind of coming to terms with that. Whereas this one, it isn't focused as heavily on her sexuality. It's more so these two girls have the same dad. One of them lives in the United States and one of them lives in the Dominican Republic, I want to say. Yeah. And they don't know about each other until the dad dies. So this one really talks a lot about grief. And then one of the main characters, I don't know if she's bi or lesbian, but she has a girlfriend who's her best friend, who her dad never really saw their relationship for what it was. He mostly just saw them as best friends, not really in a relationship. So she's kind of struggling with that on top of losing him. I thought it was done really well. One I'm super excited to talk about because I just finished it this morning actually. Ellie Engel Saves Herself by Leah Johnson, the same author of You Should See Me in a Crown. Gave that one, I think, 4 stars. That one's super good too. Also a good LGBT recommendation. This one, we're following Ellie, who gets superpowers, and she's also in love with her best friend, so who is a girl. So she's kind of struggling with coming to terms with these powers, thinking that she's kind of a freak for them, and then also kind of struggling with her friend because her friend is kind of struggling with her having these powers and the fact that she could become super popular because of them. So this is a super cute middle grade read. Unfortunately, one of the only middle grade books that I have on here, but this one was super good, super heartwarming, just came out earlier this month. Would definitely recommend. The next book I have here I read last month, and that was Ophelia After All. This one follows our bisexual main character, Ophelia, as she kind of figures out what her sexuality is. Because her whole life, she thought she was super into boys. And then all of a sudden she gets a crush on a girl, she kind of freaks out and has a coming of age story. Right, staying in the YA category, I have The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. I read this one a couple of years ago, so apologies, but this one is told in verse following our gay main character as he kind of discovers drag, so that's super fun. Like I said, I haven't read this one for a while, but what I remember, it was super good. Michael, mixed race, gay, in London, so a couple different representations that we could see in this. Next, I have a romance, and that is Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur. She also wrote Written in the Stars. Both of these are sapphic love stories, adult romance, so there is a little bit of spice, just so you're aware. I don't own the first one, but I ended up winning the second one in a giveaway, and that one is also super good, following some of the side characters. But that has a straight couple, so we will not be discussing it. This one is a, oh my gosh, what's it called? Second Chance Romance, which I didn't know if I would be super into. I think this is one of the first ones that I've really read, but the cover is just beautiful. It takes place in Seattle, obviously. And all three of these books in the series I highly recommend. They're all super good. So, also one thing I forgot to note about this one is one of the main characters, I can't remember exactly how it happens, but kind of loses her house or doesn't have housing of some sort, so she ends up moving in with the other main character. So it's like a forced proximity as well, if you're into that. Yeah, I thought that would be an important thing to note because that's one of my favorite tropes. Next, I think we will head into the fantasy, historical fiction type of area. Starting off, I had to mention The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Following our main character, Evelyn Hugo, who is bisexual. I'm sure I don't super have to talk about this because this is one of BookTube's darlings. But it's one of my favorite books. I have only read it one time just because I know whenever I reread it, it's gonna break my heart, and I'm just not ready for that emotional damage quite yet. But this one's told in past and present. Our main character is kind of going through her life and going through all of her husbands that she's had and talking about the greatest love of her life. Then I have The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I read this a couple months ago, or last year, actually. I think I read it last year. I don't know. I read the second book a couple of last month. But this one, we're following Monty and his friend. What's his friend's name? Percy. Monty is in love with Percy. It's a historical fiction. He's told, I don't know what year this is supposed to take place, 1700s. So back in the 1700s, they would have this, what's it called? Grand Tour of Europe. There we go. They would have this Grand Tour of Europe that they would embark on, mostly the rich people, I'm pretty sure. But so Monty and Percy and his sister and Monty's sister, Felicity, who is the second book is about, go on this grand tour, and it just kind of is about their love story. It is also one of the bigger books that I've read in my lifetime, but really recommend this. I think they're so cute. Monty is a little chaotic, can be morally gray at times, but overall it was a fun book. 5 out of 5 stars. Then we have The House in the Cerulean Sea. Another one I'm sure I don't really need to introduce to you. Oh, by TJ Klune. 5 out of 5 stars. Incredible, remarkable, show-stopping, never the same. Everything Lady Gaga says. This one really tugs at your heartstrings. It's found family. We're following Linus as he kind of has like a boring, stagnant life. He gets put on an assignment to go and investigate this little island with these dangerous kids, and like I said, it's found family. I'm sure you can assume where it goes from there, but it's very sweet and wholesome, and I love it. Keeping up with the fantasy realm, we have Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. Once again, another one that I'm sure you guys already know about, but the amount of LGBT rep that is in this is so good. Basically, every character is queer of some sort, or, you know, whether it be gay, trans, bi, lesbian. There's so much good representation in here, especially for such a little book. There are like 7 or 8 books now in the series. I haven't read the newest one quite yet, but I've reread this one and the second one, Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I've read both of them, I think, 3 times. Definitely recommend. They are novellas, so a lot happens in a short span of pages. So you don't necessarily see every single thing that you might want to see. But personally, I like a shorter book. That's just me. This one is portal fantasy. These kids from different world, they find their perfect world, and then they end up having to come back to our world, and then they find it hard to deal with that. A lot of them want to go back. And a lot of them have seen some pretty traumatic things happen. So Eleanor West, where the book takes place, Eleanor West's home kind of takes the kids in. You get to see their story. This one's a bit of a murder mystery, so that's kind of fun. Next, I have some of my favorite books to talk about, and that is witchy books. So the first one I have here is These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. There is a second one, This Coven Won't Break, I think is what it's called. I don't own that one. Fun fact, I actually won that book in a signed version of it from the author before the book came out in an Instagram giveaway, and the book never came in the mail. It was very disappointing, and it was like, I think right around COVID time, because I remember I ended up moving back home from college, and then I wanted to reach out to her and be like, hey, I never got the book, but like, I don't know, I felt like it was too weird at that point because I had already messaged her being like, hey, it's been a couple weeks, I never got it. Besides the point. But this one, 5 out of 5 stars. It has also been a few years, like I said, it was before COVID. So this one, there's witches, lesbian witches. We're in Salem. One of the girls works at like a witchy store from what I remember, which I love that. So this one is a bit of a romance and a thriller all in one, because people kind of start going missing, I think. Sorry, I think people actually start getting killed. It is a YA, so it's not like super graphic from what I remember, but if you're into witches and you're into gay witches, would recommend this, as well as this next one being The Witchery by S. Isabel. This one is kind of talks about these 4 girls, dark academia, so if you're into that, and there is something called the hunting season, and there's like a boys' school nearby that there's wolves coming, killing people. It's kind of an interesting one to talk about. This one, I would probably recommend These Witches Don't Burn over The Witchery, just because this one did take me a couple tries to get into. I think I had to start it over 2 or 3 times, but I did end up really liking it. I like the like sorority, boarding school, dark academia vibe that the girls have going on. And then the end does kind of leave you on a, I won't say a cliffhanger, but a very interesting piece of information that will lead us into book 2, which is coming out later this year. So the next 2 that I have are The Grimrose Girls and The Wicked Remain by Laura Pohl. I haven't quite read The Wicked Remain, but I read Grimrose Girls last year. It was gay and sapphic, so I'm sure the second book is also going to be gay and sapphic. This one, we're following 4 friends, and then someone gets murdered. We're at a boarding school, dark academia with kind of fantasy vibes. This is a good YA thriller, but it's like YA fantasy thriller. So if you're into that, pick this up. All right, moving into more of the thriller category. I only have a couple here, but the first one is Sadie by Courtney Summers. I read this years ago at this point, but one of my all-time favorites. We're following Sadie, who is queer of some sort. It's never specified in the book from what I remember, but she is trying to find the person who murdered her sister, and then there is also simultaneously a podcast trying to find her because she is now missing. So it's kind of like dual perspective. From what I remember, this is one of the first books that kind of like did that podcast element to it, so hats off to Sadie for that and for doing it so good. The next book I have here is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This one came out a couple of months ago. I know it is very controversial, but I personally really liked it. 4.5 stars, following this woman who goes to a writing retreat, and it's very secluded, winter vibe. The author that is running the writing retreat is a little nutso, but lots of sapphic elements in this one that I would really recommend. Also in the same vein of that is They Never Learn. Can't remember who the author is, but I read those two around the same time, and this is also another like sapphic horror that I would recommend. A good for her revenge story. Next, a bit of a YA horror, being The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. This one, our character is genderqueer, goes by any pronouns. They mostly use he in the book, but I'm pretty sure that Mars is the name of the character. Mars says that he goes by any pronoun. This one, his main character, oh my god, his sister gets killed at the beginning of the book. Somehow I think she's dead already at the beginning of the book. But she was supposed to go to this summer camp, and so instead he goes in her place. This is honestly, the perfect YA summer camp horror book that I have ever read. A lot of times summer camp books kind of aren't done the best, but this one was so atmospheric, felt like I was really there. The audiobook of this actually has like little moments where there's like bugs making sounds, and like different like noise effects that really make you feel like it's summertime and you're there. So definitely recommend. Also, look how cute the cover is. And the inside cover, it's little honeycombs for the bees. That is adorable. And there's even a little bee embossed in the book. So what more could you ask for? Next, I have 2 books by the same author once again, and that is Aiden Thomas. Cemetery Boys and then the Sunbearer Trials. Both of these YA fantasy following trans masculine main characters. This one we are following oh my gosh, what was his name? Yadriel, as he becomes a brujo and tries to prove himself to his family, but he also brings back a school bad boy who they fall in love. He falls in love with a ghost. That's what I meant when he brings him back. He's dead. Sorry. So that's that one. And then this one is Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games. The main character is actually the child of a goddess, so that's very interesting. And then he kind of gets thrown into a Hunger Games-esque setting to have someone be sacrificed. There is going to be a sequel to this one. Not sure when that's coming out. Editing me, if you can find any information on that, I'll pop that up here. Okay, guys. We are getting down in the stack. Only a few books left. Bear with me. So the first book, one of my first 5-star of this year, I believe, is Aces Wild by, who wrote this? Amanda DeWitt. This one is following a group of asexual characters as they go on a heist. What more do you need to know? Super fun. There is like a bit of a love story in this one as well, so I think that's really fun too, getting like asexual rep but then getting romantic rep, because a lot of times I think it's just kind of perceived as, well, if you're asexual you're automatically a romantic, which is not the case for everybody. So I really like how that was portrayed in this one. Whereas in Loveless by Alice Oseman, our main character is asexual, but she doesn't necessarily know it yet, and she's trying to figure out, am I straight, am I a lesbian, am I asexual? This book is so good. I read it basically in one sitting. It made me sob. I annotated it while I was reading it, because it's just such a good, important book. One of my favorite takeaways from this book is like how you should treat your friendships similarly to how you would treat your romantic relationships, because they're just as important. So that was a really big takeaway from this book, and I will treasure it forever. It wouldn't be an LGBT recommendations video without another book by Alice Oseman, Heartstopper. I have my cute Fairy Loot edition one. This is the second volume because I don't have the first one, but from here on out, the rest of these are all graphic novels, by the way, so that's fun, different. This one is following two boys. One of them is out as gay, the other one isn't out yet. He actually thinks he's straight until he meets our main character Charlie. They fall in love. It was a Netflix show. I'm sure you've heard of it. If you haven't read it yet, pick it up. What are you doing? Okay, so next I have The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag. This one is following two girls. One of them is a mermaid, one of them's a human. She's a Kelpie, actually. She's not a mermaid, is she? One of the main characters gets turned into a human every 7 years, and now is the time that she turns into a human. She kind of has her relationship with this human girl, and I won't spoil much more than that, but very cute. Probably is gonna make you cry, made me cry. Recommend. Okay, so second to last book I have here, I read this month actually, and that is Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. So this is a memoir by Maya, and the pronouns used are ones I've never heard of, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But E uses air pronouns, and in this, they're talking about being non-binary and asexual. So this was a really good read, very heartbreaking. I actually read it in one sitting before work one day, and it was making me cry a lot because of all the like misgendering that happens in here, and talking about the first period experiences. Yeah, very graphic period scene in this as well, like to a point where I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, if you are looking for like a non-binary representation or asexual representation in like a memoir graphic novel form, I think this would be a really good one to pick up. Okay, the sun is setting. We have one book left. We've made it through a lot. I hope you found something so far that you like. The last book I have here is Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. This one, our main character, you guys know I love witches, like I said earlier. Our gay witch. I can't remember if she's a lesbian or bisexual. And then her friend from childhood who moved away for a little bit and moved back and is now non-binary. So this one has a bit of like a mystery, I won't say thriller because it's very cozy. It's a very cozy mystery vibe with witches, werewolves, and just falling in love with your friend. This is very cute. Definitely recommend. Also, I know sometimes, at least for me, it's really hard to get into a graphic novel unless you, unless the art style is super good. So I'll give you, oh, there's some of the art style. I think this one is super cute. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be too hard to show. There we go. That's the girl in the sea. And then let me see if I can find a good one from Maya's story. Her sister. She's so cute. There's another one too that was so pretty. These two pictures I really wanted to show. This one, sorry, the lighting is like really bad right now because the sun's going down, but that one, and then also this one, just so pretty. So there you have it. I have a ton of books to put away now. Yeah, but happy Pride Month. I hope you found something that you like, something that you haven't read yet. Let me know what LGBT books you will be picking up this month for Pride. Hopefully I can get through a good bunch of my TBR reads, fingers crossed. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much. Bye.